Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and in this video we are going to see Introduction to JavaScript. So let's get started. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a scripting language and it was made by Brendan Eich at Netscape, and it first came at December 4, 1995 after just 10 days of development. Now a lot of people criticize JavaScript on this thing that it was only made in 10 days. But see, after Brendan Eich developed it in 10 days. But after this, a lot of other features were added by ECMA organization to this thing. And so today it is very evolved, and it is very good language now. And you can say your programs, like the programs you write in this language can be called as scripts. And one important point I want to tell you is that JavaScript and Java are not the same thing. A lot of developers are always confused in this thing and they think that JavaScript and Java are same. But let me tell you, they are completely different and they don't have any relation between them. Now you might ask me that why JavaScript? Why we should learn JavaScript? Why not any other language? See, JavaScript was created for front-end development, and it is created for making web pages alive. At starting it was created for this purpose only. So if users can interact with the page, so they won't get bored and they would be easily able to navigate around the page, so that could easily make the web page look good. So for example, in interactivity, when I am saying interactivity, then you can think like, for example, when you perform some action, like for example on moving mouse cursor. So basically you can see that I've created this simple web page, and if you just hover over this web page, you can see that whenever I am hovering over the web page, you can see that these two things are constantly changing. And let me tell you what are these things. So basically, this thing you can see, this value, as you can see, let me just mark it, okay. So you can see this value. Now this value is actually the X position of your mouse cursor on the web page. So X-axis position of your mouse cursor on the web page is this value, 39, and the Y position of your cursor on the web page, okay, so that is this value. So whenever I am changing my cursor position, you would see that these values would constantly change, and so you can see that it's constantly changing. Now for example, I take it to extreme left side, you can see the X position became 0, and it should become 0. Now let's try to take it to the extreme top. So you can see that whenever I'm taking this to extreme top, it's becoming 0, Y is becoming 0 and X is also 0. So this is the origin, okay, and then I can move it anywhere and it would change automatically. So you can see that. So this is the use of JavaScript. You can do this thing with the help of JavaScript. If I disable JavaScript, and then in that case it won't be able to perform something like this, okay. And maybe like you want JavaScript to perform some action on typing something in input box. Now you can see that I've created this simple web page. Now this web page, you can see in this web page we have an input box. Now let's try to type something on this input box. For example, if I type my name, you can see that it's performing an action. Whenever I am typing something in an input box, you can see when I am typing Tushar in this input box, you can see this is constantly changing the text over here at the top of the input box. Let's try to type something else. So if I type programming, you can see it's constantly changing the text above. Let's try to type something like JavaScript. It's changing. Let's try something random. You can see it's still changing. So this is what JavaScript can do easily, okay. Without JavaScript, you cannot do this thing. Or maybe you want to perform JavaScript action on clicking a button with mouse. So you can see that I've created a web page here, and if you just click on this button click, you can see like for now the text is default to not clicked yet. Now if I click on this button click, you can see that it turns to button click now. Now let's try to unclick it, okay. I don't know if unclick is even a word or not, but yeah, let's click on unclick. When I click on unclick, you can see that it changes to button unclicked. When I click on click, it changed to button click now. When I click on unclick, it changed to button unclicked. Now all this is happening just because of JavaScript. You can see whenever I'm clicking a button, this is a button, I'm clicking it, action is performed, and this action actually changes the text. I can unclick it, you can see this button again changed the text. So you can see these are the events emitted when a button is clicked. So all this can be done with the help of JavaScript. Without JavaScript, this won't work at all. or etc. Like you can have a lot of things, you can have a lot of types of interactivity with users. So all these things are achievable with the help of JavaScript. Also, as I said, at starting it was created for front-end development, that is, it was created for making web pages, but today we can also make backend, we can also do backend development, or you can say server-side programming, that is, you can create web servers with the help of JavaScript by the introduction of Node and Deno. Okay, so basically these are two powerful things that are built upon JavaScript, and these can help you do server-side programming. So JavaScript is becoming very powerful today. So now let's see what can JavaScript do in your browser. So it can do following things on your browser. First of all, it can add new HTML to the page. For example, if you have certain HTML, then just with a click of button or something else, some kind of action performed by user, it can directly add new HTML to the page. And it can also change the existing content, it can modify styles and add new styles to existing content. Okay, so let's try to do what I said practically. You can see that I said that you can add new HTML to the page, you can change the content of existing HTML, and you can even change styles, the CSS of an element, okay, or a group of elements. Now let's try doing this thing here. So you can see that I have made some web page here, and you can see when I click on add a new paragraph, just note it here. You can see, you have to note here, you would see that a new paragraph would be added to the HTML. You would see that in the paragraphs, below the paragraphs, you would see that another paragraph would be added. Let me show you, just see it properly. When I click over it, you can see a new paragraph automatically gets added over here. You can see that was not earlier there, but now it's there. Okay, you can see that when I click on this, a new paragraph gets added. I can keep on adding new paragraphs. Okay, now let's try to okay, let me just click again. You can see another paragraph added. Now let's try to add a new paragraph, and now let's try to change content of the new paragraph. You can see this is the new paragraph. Now let's change the content of it. Okay, so you have to see it properly. The content of this paragraph is new paragraph for now. Now let's change it to something else. So for example, I click on this, just you have to notice over here. Let me click on this. You can see when I click on this, it became new content, and obviously it would be reflected over here. You can see that it works. Let's try to now change color of this new paragraph to red. So now it would be adding CSS to it. So you can see over here in the styles tab, or maybe here only, you would see that a new attribute style would be added to this HTML. Okay, now let's try to click on this. When I click on this, see, immediately it adds a style property, okay, with a color of red, and you can even check the CSS of it. Okay, if I just click on it, you can see that CSS has also been added. So that is the thing, that is the power of this JavaScript. You can see it's working properly. Also, it can react to user actions. For example, it can run on mouse click. For example, if I click on a button, it can directly run. I also shown this already, and it can also run on pointer movement. For example, it can run when we are moving the cursor. I already shown that too, and then it can also run on key press. I already shown that too. For example, if I was typing something on the input box, it was automatically changing. This was all done with the help of JavaScript. Then it can also send requests over the network to remote servers and download and upload files. For example, if you have some content that is not on your server, it is on someone else's server, then you can easily fetch data from there and display the data to your own in your own website. Okay, and also you can upload data to another server from your own website. So that can be easily done with the help of JavaScript. And the best thing about this is that you don't need to even refresh your page. It would automatically do without refreshing the web page. Okay, so let's see that practically. So you can see that I have made this web page. Okay, made this page. This is available on internet also. So I have given the link in the description for this. You can check it. Now, if you see here, you can see that there, like this website generates a code for you. Okay, so it's generating a code for you, and this code has obviously a content and its author. Then you can even copy the code. For example, I click on copy. Let's try to go to Notepad and see if it works. You can see I can paste it. Okay, this is working. This is also due to JavaScript only, and it has a reload button. Okay, or refresh button, whatever you can say it. Okay, now you can see when I refresh the web page, you can see it generates a new code for me. Now let's again refresh. You can see that it again generates a new code. Refresh, again generates a new code. So how it works? Actually, you would see that you would now see that like I'm gonna show you that on here only, that this code is not there in the this code is not there in my HTML. If I try to show you, you can see this code is there in my HTML, but you can see only this code is there. When I refresh, you would see a new code, but that new code is not in my web page. It's coming from some other server. Okay, it's not on my web page. You can see, you can check the HTML, you can see there is a code in which the code is displayed is there, and its author is there. But other than this, you can see no other, like I don't have any other code. You may check it and you would see that there is no other code here. But if I refresh the web page, I would get a new code. All this is working because when I load my website, JavaScript is automatically fetching a code from some other server. Okay, let's try to see in the network tab. In the network tab, you can see all the resources which are transferred over here. Okay, you can see all these files are transferred over here, and also you can see that this is totaling 4.9 kilobyte or maybe 741 kilobyte of resources that are there, and 4.9 kilobytes are transferred, and 12 requests have been established. Okay, so let's try to see. Okay, so let's try to first of all clear everything. And one more thing, I can just click on refresh, and this also works. You can see this worked. I can refresh again and again, and this would show me new code. Now let's try to clear everything over here. Now let's click again, refresh. I'm gonna click refresh again. When I click, you can see a new request has been generated here. You can see this new request has been generated over here. Now let's try to click on this request. You would see in the headers section, you would see that the request URL is this. You can see this is someone else server. This is not my server. You can see go quotes api.herokuapp.com. You can see my server is this one, but it's fetching this from some other server. This is all done with the help of JavaScript. You can see this is all done with the help of JavaScript. JavaScript is automatically doing this. You can consider this refresh button as a button, and when I click on this button, you can see JavaScript automatically gets a new code. You can see another request is generated. I can just show you. I can request again and again. You can see whenever I am clicking on refresh, this generates a new request. You can see it's generating a new request, like it would generate new requests every time. So that is the power of JavaScript. You can see it just gets the content from another server. You can see if you just click on preview here, you would be able to see that it actually sent me this thing, where you can see there it sent me how much codes have been sent. So obviously one code has been sent. Okay, and message is success. That means the code has been sent successfully. Then you can see status 200. I would not discuss it over here. This is status code, but you don't need to understand this. But the most important part is this quotes. Let's click on this. If I expand this, you can see there is 0. I expand this again. You can see there is author. Now you can see the author written here is the same which is displayed here. If I just see, tag is not used by me, but you can see that this quote is the quote that I am displaying over here. You can see the content is same. Failure as progress, and you can see in the ending it's also here. You can see that. So that is the post. You can that is the quote that is given to you, and this is all generated by JavaScript. This is fetched from JavaScript. JavaScript is fetching it from another server. If you refresh, you can see the page refreshes and then you get code. But with the help of JavaScript, without refreshing, you would be able to get new code. You would see that. Okay, let me just clear this again and just see over here. Notice here only. Okay, you have to notice here and see if it refreshes or not. When I click over this, you would see this does not refresh, but still the content changes to new code. I can try it again. You can see the content changes, but the page does not refresh. All these things are done by JavaScript, and you can see that two new requests are generated over here. You can see one request over here, then another request over here. Okay, so that is how JavaScript can even fetch some data from another server. Another example for this can be another site which is made by me only. Okay, so you can see this is another weather app which I created. You can see it tells the weather on the basis of location. Also, I live in Agra, but it's telling of Ghaziabad because it's not that accurate. Okay, so yeah, but you can search for any city. For example, I can search for Agra. You can see I can search for it and it would display the weather. Let me just try to search it again. You can see when okay, let me just do it again. Okay, let's try to say Agra, India, and let's do it again. Okay, wait, let me just refresh the whole page, then do it again, because Agra was already fetched by me. Agra data was already fetched by me, so because of this it was not working again. But yeah, let's click on refresh again. You can see it's now showing me the data for this, and you can see that this is the web page which I made. You can see all the data is there, but you might ask, like, how this data is coming? How can I know that this is the weather of a city or of a place? How I know this thing? This is all due to the help of JavaScript. I am able to fetch the data of this the current weather from an API. Now, what is API? We would see this, but it's like you can say that I am fetching data from other server. You can see that this data is fetched from other server. You can see the 22 degrees Celsius. You would see this here only. You can see if I just show you, you can see the temperature in Celsius is 22.1, which is 22. So I rounded it to 22 only. And then if I click on Fahrenheit, you can see the Fahrenheit temperature 71.8, that is 71 is shown here. This is all done with the help of JavaScript only. You can even see that I would again click on Celsius only. Now you can see that feels like temperature is there. You can see 23.5, that is 23 degree, and feels like Fahrenheit temperature. If I just click on this, you can see Fahrenheit is there now with me. So all these things can be done with JavaScript. You can see how powerful JavaScript is. I didn't refresh the page, but it worked without refreshing even. So that is the power of JavaScript, and you can easily use these things, easily do these things with the help of JavaScript. It can also get and set cookies, ask question to visitor, or show messages. Now, what I mean by cookies is just a bunch of data which are remembered on the client side. For example, if a web page sets some cookies to your in your browser, then these cookies would remain there. And it would remain there, and it won't and if you come again to that page, you can get the data from there. You can get the data from these cookies. It can also ask question to the visitor. It can show some messages to visitor, and a lot of other things can be done with the help of JavaScript. Then you can also remember data on the client side by using, as I said, cookies. There are also other things. For example, we have session persistence and a lot of session storage, and we even have a database also today. Like in modern browsers, we also have a type of database also in the browser, and you can access that database, modify the values in database, or read from database using JavaScript. We would see that later in this series, but for now you can remember these things. So overall, we can say that it adds logic to web page. And this logic is obviously important if you want to make web page look interactive. So now let's see what cannot JavaScript do in your browser. What it cannot do in browser. So it cannot do following things on a browser. It cannot directly read or write files on hard disk. So you cannot, like with JavaScript, you cannot directly write or read data on a hard disk, or you cannot copy some data, or you cannot execute this. Now, this is not a disadvantage. This is just a limitation, and this limitation is provided just because of security reasons. See, if a web page is allowed to write some data or read some data, then it can obviously steal your data from your hard disk, or maybe it can write some virus on your hard disk. It can also copy some data from your computer to some other computer on the server, or it can also execute these files, and this can be very dangerous. So because of this thing, JavaScript is not allowed to do this. Then it does not have any access. It does not have direct access to operating system functions. So you cannot shut down a computer with the help of web page. Also, it has no direct access to operating system functions. So you cannot shut down a computer with the help of JavaScript. Shutting down a function, shutting down a computer is a operating system function, but you cannot perform this function with the help of JavaScript, because if this is allowed, then if you by mistake went to site which can shut down your computer, then it can shut down your computer then. Okay, so that's why it's not allowed. Then although like modern browsers allow you to drag and drop, allow you to access the file by dragging and dropping the file to some part on the web page, or maybe clicking on selecting a file, uploading a file, you can get your files accessible by the web page. But again, there is a restriction, and that restriction I already told, that you have to drag and drop a file by your own or select a file from a system. Otherwise you cannot, your JavaScript cannot do this thing automatically. Okay, also we can access camera and microphone. If you have if you have used Google Meet on desktop, you might know that I can just open Google Meet and then it would ask me for permission for my camera and microphone. Then when I give it permission, it can access my microphone and camera, and anyone else on the meeting can listen to me or can basically see me. Okay, this is all possible because JavaScript can access your camera and microphone. But again, there's one thing you have to notice, and that is the permission. It cannot do this thing without asking for user permission, and the same thing applies to Android phones also. For example, if some Android app is there which wants to access your location or which wants to access your microphone, camera, then it has to ask for the permission for doing things like this. Okay, so that is the thing. Also, JavaScript cannot access your location without your permission. So if you just open a website which asks for which needs your location, then your browser would automatically ask for a permission from you. If you allow the permission, then the JavaScript there can access your location. Otherwise it cannot do anything like this. And this is also done with intention of security in mind. See, if this was not done, then any web page can access your location, and this would be very bad thing. Okay, so that's why any web page, no web page is allowed to do this thing. And there's one more thing here. Both these things, I think a lot of people won't be able to understand this for now. So I'm gonna leave these 2 points, and we are going to discuss this again. Don't worry, we are going to discuss this again, but not now. So now let's see the difference between ECMAScript and JavaScript. So let's start. So ECMA means European Computer Manufacturers Association. So this is an organization, and this is the full form of organization, European Computer Manufacturers Association. Now this organization has written a specification, and that specification is called ECMAScript. Now you may ask, what is specification? See, specification is just you can say the standards, or the way that the way in which something should be implemented. Okay, so this is specification. So ECMAScript is a specification. It has only told the way in which things the way in which JavaScript should be implemented. Okay, and JavaScript is an implementation of ECMAScript along with some features that are not present in ECMAScript. Like for example, if you're working on DOM, if you're working on browser, then we have DOM. And if you are working with Node.js on backend, on servers, you have some other things like accessing file system or creating servers. Okay, all these things are available for Node.js. So it's just like ECMAScript has defined some rules for telling how to implement JavaScript, and then browser and Node.js implement this thing. Okay, so ECMAScript has not implemented on its own. It has just told how it should be implemented. Now you may ask, like, why browsers don't directly implement these things? See, that is related to past. See what happened in past, like when there was no standard specification for JavaScript before ECMAScript, what was happening was that every browser was implementing JavaScript in their own way. Now as this was happening, then there was a problem in this. Now you might ask me, what is the problem in that? See, the problem in that was that, for example, if I make a web page and I follow the specification of a browser, for example, Chrome has implemented JavaScript in its own way, and let's say Firefox has implemented JavaScript in its own way. Then if I am developing site according to Chrome, then in that case my site could break on Firefox because Firefox has implemented in its own way. Now because of this, it was a nightmare for developers, and because of this, ECMA came forward and formed ECMAScript. And after this, after the formation of ECMAScript, browsers used ECMAScript and implemented JavaScript. Now this actually helped a lot, because after this there was nothing like problems. There was no problems like this when the website was run on some other browser. So there was no problem then. Also browsers not only implement ECMAScript, they also implement other features like DOM. See, if you just search for ECMAScript on internet, if you search ECMAScript on Chrome, then you would see that there's nothing like DOM specified in ECMAScript. DOM is a part of browser. If you would see that in other video lectures after this, and you would see that DOM is the part of JavaScript, but that is not there in ECMAScript. Okay, so all these things are extra, and these are added by browsers only. So that is the thing. So that is the difference between ECMAScript and JavaScript. They are both different. Okay, and ECMAScript is just a standard or a specification, and from that specification JavaScript is implemented. So thanks a lot everyone for being till the end of the video. If you have any doubts, you can ask me that in comment section, or you can join my Discuss server where I can answer your doubts, and not only me, the whole community would be there for answering your doubt.